welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free, in the home of the brave, on a beautiful October the 28th, 2020. Round of Deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it's going better for us than it was that Trump crowd in Nebraska last night as he was flying away on Air Force One and blaring out the song of the late Michael Jackson. Nobody really cares about us as he left hundreds of spectators standing out there in the frigid cold without transportation back to their cars, and over 25 had to go to the hospital for exposure and frostbite, Charlton. So I guess he really cares about his constituents. But I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders, because Trump left it in their hands to take care of his people.
Yeah, that's his Trump care plan. Nobody cares about us, so they can't say they didn't get a preview of it. It's all fair, love, and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Never stop rising. Also, all around the world, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be looking at still pictures. Big C, man, I love pausing. I love meditating and pausing every day. But I will never pause on the Veterans Crisis Hotline, Big C. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, just as you so eloquently said, the Trump health care plan. It does not include help for American veterans, Charlton, that are committing suicide at a rate of over 24 a day.
Wow.
There's nothing in his health care plan for them or a regular American citizens, Charlton. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number because that's the only health care plan that we can provide. We are not the nation's government.
Yeah.
But we need all Americans to sign in on that health plan for our veterans that have served this country so admirably. If all Americans decide to give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, they will not only save the lives of our American veterans, but also the lives of our American citizens.
Yeah.
Not just this pandemic is affecting, American citizens. So we have to think about the totality of what's affecting America right now, but we also have to protect our veterans first by giving out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
That's very well said, Big C. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can definitely get some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV, on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. And they say, hey kid, when you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you, as well as the home run leader, Barry Bonds. Big C, our goal is simple. We just want to recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to put people back to work just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Sports teams are doing it too. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can get some help. Man, I really love giving this out, Big C. I remember there was a thing in Star Trek. It was called the tricorder. It was Captain Kirk. He always used it. And today we call them cell phones. Anywhere in the world or anywhere in the universe, just open up your cell phone and say, Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and you will hear from our sponsors. You will hear, welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away. Big C, Spock and Captain Kirk, they beat us to the punch, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about what occurred on that show, Charlton, back in the early 60s, it was one of the most innovative and progressive shows in American television.
Yeah.
So many of the things that were utilized on that show became part of mainstream society.
Yeah, it really did become part of mainstream society. So I love having access to the Star Trek technology on the Big C Sports Show. People, please, you only have a few days left. Today's Wednesday, and the vote is Tuesday. And if you don't get your vote in by the 3rd, the Republicans are already in Congress trying to get it nullified. That doesn't make any sense. So a lot of you, if you haven't already mailed your ballots, you're going to have to stand in line. If you can do it for a concert, you can do it for your vote and your freedoms, Big C. Text the word vote to 26797 so you can be registered. When you get to the polls, they're going to ask you if you're registered. They're going to want to see if they can find your name on that information. If you're not registered, they won't let you vote. Big C, does that make any sense to you? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I can't see why anybody who had planned on voting has not voted. And if you received a ballot, I didn't see why you left it sitting on a table for weeks.
Yeah.
Mine sat in my house maybe 20 hours, Charlton, after I received it, and it was gone the next day.
Yeah.
Back in the box, traced it all the way to the voting, clerk's office. If you do have a ballot at home, you can drop it off at your local voting clerk's office, Charlton.
Yep.
You can also drop it off in a ballot box. And you can also take it to the polls on voting day if you so choose. But the last day to physically vote is on Friday prior to November 3rd.
Yeah, you gotta, don't wait till the final day because things may go down. We have a hurricane hitting Louisiana, and we have fires in Southern California. You don't know if the polling station is going to be burned. You just don't know. Do not wait till the last minute. Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. A lot of grandparents have given out that saying, Big C. Early voting could hit a record-smashing $100 million by election day. Make sure you get out and vote. Big C, I gotta say something to you, and I don't mean it to be insensitive, but I'm tired of turning the other cheek, and I know a lot of people turning the other cheek. But I heard Melania Trump, and she was on a program. I think she went to, it was Pennsylvania. Donald Trump sent his wife out on her own. He took the Air Force One. He made her take the cars. Okay, they drove her around. But she was doing at a campaign, and she was saying that the Democrats are politicizing the pandemic. The scientists are talking about the pandemic. Okay, if that makes sense. Think about it. She can't talk. Trump sent her to Pennsylvania, and the crowd could not understand her. I'm not being flippant. I'm just telling the truth, Big C. Her broken English was very hard to understand. As someone that says send foreigners back to their country and the 545 Mexicans they locked up, Big C. I know Ebonics, and I still couldn't understand what she was saying. She said the Democrats are wasting taxpayers' money. Her husband doesn't even pay taxes, trying to impeach him. He does not pay taxes. She's a foreigner spending Americans' money, taxpayers' dollar, and she could at least get some English lessons, Big C. She's a wife of a racist birtherism. That means she's Mrs. Birtherism, if that makes sense to you. And then where's her birth certificate? Nobody's asking that. You can't even understand her. I think she's what Carly B calls a bottom feeder, Big C, if that makes sense to you. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if you look at this entire Trump campaign, it has talked about the past. It hasn't talked about a future because it does not have a future for America. Here's this foreigner who is masquerading as a first lady talking about what happened a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
She's not talking about the plans that Donald Trump has for the future of America, nor does Donald Trump talk about the plans that they have for the future of America. They keep talking about we're going to open the country back up.
Yeah.
We don't have a medical plan if Obamacare gets abolished. We have no plans for opening up the school safety. Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education, you have not heard from her since this pandemic start about how safely they can open up the schools. So when you look at any of these hacks from the administration talking about this country and that everything that the Democrats have done has been a political hit job, Charlton, they politicize everything.
Yeah. So when I'm looking at the very few black women that I know that talk about voting for POTUS because he's going to save them some money, and when he puts his wife out there with his anti-Black Lives Matter, how do they? I'm so serious, but I don't mean to seem insensitive. When people say speak the English language or go back to your country, and they put her out there, you couldn't understand her. the Democrats, they tried to take over the politics because they used taxpayer dollar. I'm like, I had to run it back a couple of times on my DVR. So if that's offensive to some people, that's the same Mrs. Birtherism that caused a lot of pain for Michelle Obama and President Barack Obama. And Michelle Obama, First Lady, she never posed naked in nude magazines like Melania Trump has, for all you women, suburban women that want to listen to that garbage. But it's all fair and love and war. I got that off my chest. Big C, I want to say, hit deep, back to the wall, home run, the Dodgers. It took them 32 years, Big C, but they win another World Series. The Dodgers beat the Tampa Bay Rays 3-1 in Game 6. Big C, that was their 7th championship and their first since 1988, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it was one of those games that left you perplexed as you were watching the game being played. You wonder why the Rays manager came out and removed Blake Snell from the game, Charlton. He was in the 6th inning.
Yeah.
He's only given up 2 hits and no runs at that point.
Yeah.
And they were ahead 1-0. The Dodgers could not hit him. He was untouchable. But this is where baseball goes to the analytics versus going with your gut feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, as a fan sitting at home watching the game, you're sitting there and you're watching Blake Snell dominating the rotation
He was hot.
of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And yet his manager comes out after 6 innings because the analytics are talking about in New Day baseball. Well, come third time through the lineup, they know what you're throwing.
Yeah.
I wonder how pitchers were ever going to throw a no-hitter or a shutout if the manager's removing them in the 5th inning.
That's true.
Blake Snell is the most dominant pitcher that the Rays had.
Yeah.
But yet he was willing to give up a victory and a losing World Series game, Charlton, because he went with analytics instead of going with manager's intuition.
Yeah, I think the analytics, those guys have created a role in their own organization for almost every sports team. And that's like Melania Trump says, they take in politics to make politics out of more politics. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. But congratulations to the Dodgers. Big C, Corey Seager, he was named the MVP, most valuable player of the World Series. He also earned the honors for the National League Championship Series. That was done when Oral Hershiser did it when the Dodgers won their previous World Series title in 1988. But I like what you're saying. I heard Mookie Betts and a couple other players saying the tide really turned when they took Snell out because they couldn't hit him. And this thought that, well, the analytics show he's going to give up hits after the 6th inning or 7th inning. Sometimes you go by the zeros on the scoreboard. Big C, that makes sense to you? Your thoughts?
Well, Mookie Betts, as well as the rest of the Dodgers players, Charlton, had a sigh of relief when he came out and removed the pitcher.
Yeah.
Even manager Dave Roberts said, hey, I was perplexed, but I was thankful that he came out and took Snell out of the game. Because now we had a chance. And you saw instant results.
Yeah.
You bring in a pitcher out of the bullpen that had struggled this entire series.
Yeah.
His first batter that he faced, he gave up a hit. Snell had not been doing that.
Yeah.
So right then you saw the wheels come off for the Rays. This was just a bad managerial decision on the Rays' behalf, Charlton.
Yeah.
Which allowed the Dodgers to finish up the series.
Yeah, it allowed them to finish up the series. Remember, I'm about to ask you just the other day, had a woman ever gone to the bullpen on you in your lifetime, Big C? And I know it's happened to me a couple of times, but sometimes they end up losing, if that makes sense to you, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's what happened. Kevin Cash put his team in a position not to win last night when he took Snell out of the lineup.
Yeah.
And you have to go, with your eyes. When you're playing baseball, this game is all about eyes. When you get a hit, it's all about eyes.
Yeah.
When you're painting the corners on home plate as a pitcher, it's all about eyes. It's not about analytics.
It's what you see.
This game is about men playing the game. It's not about computers. And computers have screwed up baseball over the last several years.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to sit up, punch in numbers saying this is the most likely scenario to occur based on numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're a mathematician and you're playing the stock market, those computer numbers really don't matter. They don't matter in sports because it's all about hitting and running in sports.
Yeah, well, the Dow plunge today, that's for the biggest plunge since the month of June. And like Melania Trump, when her teleprompter went down, all she could say was, the Democrats did try to hurt my husband. I felt bad for her. You ever have where a man leaves his wife and all she has is a teleprompter, but it's in English, so she couldn't understand it? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, in politics, from time to time, you have to speak from your heart.
Yeah.
You have to be real.
You got to have a heart, though.
Has proven that they're not real. I've watched this entire campaign
Yeah.
where they say that Joe Biden is constantly reading off a teleprompter. Anybody ever pay attention to Donald Trump swinging from right to left, staring at the teleprompter that he's looking at all the time? And when he goes off the teleprompter, it's like turning a monkey loose in the circus. You don't understand what he's doing at the
Yeah. He's also looking for right to left when Stormy Daniels is on his right and his wife is on his left, if that makes sense to you. But people get down the way they want to get down. It's all fair and level war. The Dodgers, 1955, 1959, 1963, Big C, 1965, 1981, 1988, and now 2020. What a year, what a team. Congratulations to the LA Dodgers. That's from the great Vin Scully. Isn't it amazing that Vin Scully was calling the shots when the Dodgers beat the A's back in the 1988 World Series, and they didn't have Twitter when he was calling the shots, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the biggest story of this World Series, Charlton, is Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson became only the second executive to win championship rings in 2 leagues, Charlton, but he also became the first executive to win championship rings in the same year. He did it earlier this year with the Los Angeles Lakers, winning a championship ring as an executive with that organization. And now as an executive with a crosstown team, Charlton, the Los Angeles Dodgers, he wins his second ring as an executive in professional sports with 2 teams in the same year. Yeah,
he's been rolling. That means that Magic Johnson is good enough to have the Big C burger. It's a tasty burger. It's made with exotic meats. You get it at participating restaurants. Also enjoy Budweiser Zero. It has 0 alcohol, and it goes great with the Big C burger. I'm sure Magic Johnson will enjoy that as well. So Big C last night, when I look at what I think is the best player in baseball, is Mookie Betts. I mean, he's a right fielder. He's the second right fielder in World Series history with 2 hits, 2 steals, and an RBI in a game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, America is elated with Mookie Betts today, Charlton. You were able to go to Taco Bell and get a free taco.
Oh, really?
Because Mookie Betts took a walk and stole a base in the same inning in Game 1.
Yeah.
So everybody thinks that Mookie Betts in America is the best player.
Yeah, I still like the Big C burger. He could have moved up. When you want to move up, Mookie, get the Big C burger. Taco Bell, don't cut it, if that makes sense to you. It's made with exotic meats, and it's all fair in love and war. I want to ask you a thought, because I appreciate Coach Manager Roberts. And when he told Clayton Kershaw last night, which everybody, if they're honest, they were nervous about Clayton Kershaw in this whole series, Big C. And, of course, they won last night without him being on the mound. But when I saw David Roberts' mouth to Clayton Kershaw, I'm so happy for you. Now, I know I was saying I took a little bit of umbrage when he was trying to mouth off to Dave Roberts when he pulled him out of the previous game in the Dodgers 3-1 win. Kershaw did not pitch, but he get to celebrate with this team. Give me your feeling on when the manager goes to a player that's had a really tough time in their previous World Series and say, I'm happy for you, even though he didn't pitch in the game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he's happy for all his players, and I think he probably resonated that to all his players.
Yeah.
You think about being there, 3 of the last 4 years, and the players that have been within that organization that entire time, is that he's happy for them and the fortitude that they've had to fight through this and finally win a World Series title.
Yeah, I'm happy for the Dodgers. I'm happy for Roberts. I'm happy for even Clayton Kershaw, and everybody that goes through something. It's how you come through it, not going through it. But I want to ask you a question. It's all fair in love and war. Now, we talked about when Tampa Bay Rays manager Kevin Cash pulled Blake Snell. The Dodgers, won the title, facing elimination in Game 6 of the World Series on Tuesday. Cash pulled him, so he's going to take that all the way until next year. I think Snell was right about 73 pitches in the bottom of the 6th inning, and then it was amazing because the Dodgers took advantage of that, and they gave up a quick deficit and ended up losing the game 1-0. So we know that already. But let me get your thoughts, because COVID-19 is real, and there's a lot of talk about maybe Justin Turner violated COVID-19 protocols when he celebrated on the Globe Life field, Big C, with the Dodgers and his teammates. He refused instructions from security to leave the field, and behavior that Major League Baseball said is risky and it puts others' safety at risk. But it was also his players knew he tested positive, and they were still hugging him anyway, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, everybody knew that he broke protocol in this scenario, Charlton, and being very selfish. But also, when do you get an opportunity to come back around? We know the Dodgers have been in the World Series 3 of the last 4 years, and losing those series that they had been in, Charlton.
Yeah.
So he wanted the opportunity to have a photo op and celebrate with his teammates. But also, I'm thinking Major League Baseball in this scenario. You say that you only figured out in the 8th inning that he had COVID-19, that your test was that slow and had not come back. But the biggest question, Charlton, since all the players are in a bubble, how in the hell did he come down with COVID-19 if these players are in a bubble? Did he break protocol and go outside the bubble or invite somebody inside the bubble, Charlton, to contact COVID-19 because nobody else had tested positive?
Yeah, so, we have, I think, over 227,000 fatalities that they've talked about. There might be more than that, but what they equate to COVID. And I know manager Roberts, I think he's a cancer survivor. I'm not sure, but I think I heard some of our sports brethren saying that. And that means he has a pre-existing condition. But something about sports, and when you're caught up in the moment, that's the reason that every boxer, they have a trainer in the corner that says, no, throw in the towel. Throw in the towel! Throw in the towel, Rocky! They throw in the towel because sometimes you got to save fighters and athletes from themselves. But when you get caught up in the emotion, sometimes security, they get those jobs because they're told, look, you work for us, we don't work for you. So even they'll step back. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's not, like I said, it's not about security stepping back. What are you going to do? You're going to accost the guy, get into a fight with the guy? This was selfishness on Turner's behalf, Charlton.
Yeah.
He knew what the protocol was. He knew that he was not supposed to be out there in the melee that was going on after the game, but he didn't give a damn about everybody else. This moment was all about him. But like I said, the biggest question was, how did he contact COVID-19 when you're staying in a bubble?
Well, sometimes you open up the bubble and something gets inside of the bubble, if that makes sense to you, Big C. And when you're $1 million athlete and people got urges and they got needs, Big C, sometimes they will do whatever it takes to get their urges and their needs met. But I want to say again, congratulations to L.A. There's a song called I Love L.A. And the L.A. Basin, I know they're dealing with the fires in Orange County, and they have a championship with the Lakers. I believe it's 17 with the Lakers and now 7 with the Dodgers. So I guess now the Rams have to decide if they want to get their running shoes on and try to do a lot. But congratulations, the World Series champion, Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Lakers, and Magic Johnson. You're at the helm of all of it. Big C, I want to run into the world of some NFL football. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on in our country, Big C. The election, the people know they're playing in the COVID-19 environment, and they're playing anyway because that money's rolling in. The Dallas Cowboys, they're cutting nose tackle Datari Poe and cornerback Darryl Worley after trying to trade them. Dallas signed both players as free agents this offseason, but neither's met expectations. I mean, nobody has on Dallas' defense, Big C. But Poe's made only 7 tackles in 7 games, and Worley only broke up 1 pass, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you do this type of move, Charlton, because you kind of motivate the rest of the lackluster roster that you got. The Dallas Cowboys couldn't stop anything right now. I mean, an ant farm would run right through their defense the way that they're playing.
Yeah.
But this was a motivational move because who do you point a finger at?
Yeah.
If you're not going to point a finger at all 22,
yeah,
cut 2 and move on from there.
Well, it's funny because the other day on the radio, Jerry Jones told the radio guy, shut up! So then he told his other players, shut up, I'm trading this all fair and level war. Also, the Cincinnati Bengals, they trade defensive end Carlos Dunlap to the Seattle Seahawks just days after he tried to sell his house on Twitter. You can't put everything on social media, Big C, or can you? Your thoughts?
Well, they saw that he wanted to get out of town, Charlton, so they facilitated that.
Yeah.
This is a good move for the Seattle Seahawks. They desperately need some pass rushing help, and when Dunlap is healthy, he's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Cincinnati also gets a backup offensive lineman from Seattle in the trade as well as the draft pick.
Yeah.
That potentially can help their team long run.
Yeah, I guess he tried to be like Donald Trump and put everything on Twitter. And thought that the people who read Twitter weren't going to find out, but it's all fair in love and war. Also, when I think about some things that are going on in the world of sports, and I love how the young athletes, Tua's going to be playing in the Dolphins' next start, so he's excited about that. But when you look at young quarterbacks, Big C, Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, last year's Heisman Trophy winner out of national champion LSU, and the Los Angeles Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert, last year the Rose Bowl champion out of Oregon, they continue, in my opinion, to distance themselves from the rest of the pack. The Offensive Rookie of the Year conversation, I think each has had to overcome some difficult circumstances to put their teams in a position to compete every week, and the victories are not piling up. That's going to come in time, but the Chargers are a better team than the Bengals at this time. Give me your thought on which is the better player, Big C.
Well, I mean, when you look at these two rookie quarterbacks, Charlton, they're 1 and 2 in the history of the NFL as far as statistically passing the ball, yardage-wise, in games at this point of their career in their first year.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the maturation of both of these quarterbacks, they're both getting better each week. Herbert, is leading the all-rookie quarterbacks in yards passing per game, a little over 300.
Yeah.
But, when you look at Dalton also, not Dalton, but Joe Burrow there in Cincinnati, he doesn't have the help around him. He doesn't have the receiving core, nor the offensive line that Justin Herbert has.
Yeah.
But he also went over 400 yards in his last game.
Yeah.
I think both of these quarterbacks, if they can stay healthy, they're going to have budding careers. Joe Burrow has been sacked more than any quarterback in the league this year, and that leaves some concern for everybody about his future in staying healthy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they've done things that you expect for quarterbacks being taken 1 and 2 in the draft. They were the first two quarterbacks drafted, number 1 and number 6 overall.
Yep.
And they're leading their team as bona fide rookies. Burrow has the maturity because he was 23 years old. I think that when you look at Herbert, he's playing a lot better than expectations. When you look at some of the games he had at Oregon, and you say, okay, this guy is not ready for NFL defenses. You go back to a game they had against Arizona State last year when they were playing against former NFL coaches and they were coaching Arizona State.
Herman Edwards.
And they buffooned him all game long, Sheldon. He couldn't figure out the defense against Arizona State.
Yeah.
And he had a few other hiccups like that in his career.
Yeah.
But he has stepped up. They've given him a great offense under Anthony Lynn there with the Chargers, and he's playing beyond expectations, I think.
Yeah, he's done and then he has a offensive coordinator. His quarterback coach is Shane Steichen came out of UNLV in El Dorado Hills High School up in Northern California way back in the day, Big C. But I think he's going to be okay. And I want to defend Justin Herbert when he played for the Ugrin Ducks. You know what a duck does when it gets next to the heat and it has a devil coming out of the oven? They don't fly low, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, all you got to do is ask your president, Mr. Orange Duck himself, what he does when the heat is turned on.
Well, that shows you how smart a duck is when it sees an oven and the devil's coming out of it, the sun devils. They know how to fly low, if that makes sense to you. Also, the Houston Texans, before we come up on the Big C pause, the Houston Texans, Big C, they closed facilities for safety after COVID-19. Some positive tests are going to break out. They're just going to happen. And as people are having hospital surgeon, and it's surging all over the country, and then you have the NFL teams, they're shutting down, but they're still going, iceberg, straight ahead. They're not stopping, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they're not going to stop, and this is just a foresight of things that come, Charlton. Many more NFL facilities will close up as the season chugs along because they're going to get the games in. They don't mind if they have to remove them and delay them for a later date because they own all the facilities. Yeah,
they own them all, and when you have your own facility, you can do what Jerry Jones said, shut up! If you ever tell somebody shut up, it's all fair and liberal. We won't shut up, but we will take what's called the Big C pause, and we'll come back and talk more about football and sports and politics, and we'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow us on Spreaker. You can find us on Spotify. There's so many things that you can do to follow Big C Sports. And I just really appreciate the way things are growing. I'm going to talk about some things in sports and politics. I just want to get your opinion because it's always on my mind. If people ever ask anywhere in the universe on the planet Earth, if you've ever thought about it, where do the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean meet? And you think about that, they meet at what's called Cape Horn. And it's a rugged headland. It lies at the southernmost part of Terra del Fuego, and it's down in the South America, Big C. Cape is notoriously difficult to navigate through rough currents and strong winds and unpredictable waters. For centuries, sailors did not dare to try to navigate Cape Horn until the Dutchmen did it, and it was in 1616. Think about it, Big C. Larger, more modern vessels can navigate it with remote waters with ease because of technology. But they don't spin in the same direction. And I think it's a lot to do with our political climate. People say they want a great country. We have a foreigner by the name of Melania Trump. They call her the first lady, but she's Donald Trump's third wife, so she can't be the first lady to him. And she can't even speak English. And they waste taxpayer money to send her to Pennsylvania by herself, and people couldn't understand her. Now, how does that relate to sports and politics? Big money donors, Big C, a relatively small group of donors, it makes up a huge chunk of the overall donation data. It's so important, Big C, in my opinion. There's 40 owners that account for more than $40 million, more than 85% of all contributions. And looking specifically at these big spenders, Big C, it's clear where their allegiances lie. 77.7% of that $40 million, it went to Republican causes or candidates, with 18.8% going to Democrats. This is where political spending power among American professional sports ownerships is concentrated. They say they want social justice, but they get their money behind a guy that believes that racism does not exist, and he's a bigot. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's also called the tax break that they get, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's what they're making the donations for.
Yeah.
I said it earlier when the owner of the Cowboys, Jerry Jones, sent his well wishes to Donald Trump and his wife for contacting the fake COVID-19 that he said he had when he was faking that. He never sent his well wishes to any player, Charlton, or coach in the league who has contacted COVID-19. And they work in that same organization that they do.
Yeah, they're in the same boat. But just like the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, where they meet, there's a lot of turbulence. And both sides are going to have to push for whatever they want. That's why people got to get out and vote. Don't sit back and think, there's nothing that I can do because I'm not rich or I'm not whatever. You got to get out and vote. Don't be cynical. Just get out and vote. It's so important. And speaking of voting, Big C, there's some things going on also in the world of the NBA. You know, change is always happening. Houston Rockets are hiring Dallas Mavericks assistant Stephen Silas to become the franchise's next head coach. And with the Rockets, they're finalizing terms of the contract today, and the formal announcement was made also today. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think this was a good move. You know, you get tired of recycling these old coaches that have never won a championship in the NBA, and this is a good move. This is another minority coach that is getting a head coaching job in the NBA. He's been an assistant in the NBA since 2001. So he has a long lineage of being an assistant coach in the NBA, Charlton. Not only that, he grew up in the NBA. His dad won 3 NBA titles as a player, 1 with the Seattle Supersonics, 2 with the Boston Celtics. So he has been raised in the mantra of professional basketball his entire life. So this is a guy I think that will be innovative as far as what he brings to the Rock. He's worked with superstars in the NBA. These last 2 years he's been in Dallas, so he's been around Luka Doncic. Early in his career, he was in Golden State with Steph Curry. So he knows what superstars in the NBA are and what expectations are.
Yeah, I'm glad they're giving the man a chance. Because former Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey, he's finalizing a deal to become the 76ers' new president of basketball operations. And general manager Elton Brand is expected to remain in his current spot. And the new coach, Doc Rivers, is also a proponent of the hiring. Rivers and Morey have a long history and a strong relationship, and I think it's going to help them. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Morey has brought in solid players in his history in Houston. When you look at the superstars that he has brought through that organization, and leaving in place Elton Brand, I think is a solid move that he's coming in as a consultant to help this organization progress. You bring in Doc Rivers, you bring in Daryl Morey. You get 2 different perspectives on personnel that they have there in Philadelphia. You have some underachievers, and you're going to mold the new direction that this franchise needs to go in.
It's going to go, and hopefully they can get Joel Embiid to buy into Doc Rivers' style of coaching. It's all fair and level war. NBA's revenue dropped to 10% to $8.3 billion. Think about that. In 2019-2020 season, what hasn't dropped in this year when you think about it with COVID-19 pandemic? According to financial numbers shared with teams, the balance of the finances included an $800 million loss in gate receipts and a $400 million loss in sponsorships and merchandise, and they're still a billion-dollar organization. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, those courtside seats are not cheap in the NBA, but you lose all this revenue because you canceled the remaining part of the regular season. Games weren't on television, and sponsorship wasn't in the arena. It wasn't there. And I mean, people you can't with a pandemic. It's amazing they're even playing anyway, because when somebody tests positive, what do? They put them on pause, and they bring in guys who can keep playing.
I didn't think my vote counted sometimes when I was a younger boy. For the first 7 years of his career, Washington Wizards guard Bradley Beal, he shied away from being vocal about issues to avoid being the target of political zealots, Big C. But you can't be that in this world. There's a lot at stake in the 2020 election, including economic inequality, a growing health crisis, and political decency that will impact Bill's sons, Big C. That's why the 27-year-old NBA star is voting for the first time in his life, Big C. Your thoughts?
And that mirrors a lot of Americans, Charlton, that have been driven to the polls for the first time in their life. When we see the motivation for people getting out voting, we have record early voting. 73 million Americans have voted already, Charlton, as of today, and still counting. So when we see the drive and the enthusiasm that is out there, and people are starting to understand, yes, your vote does count.
Yeah.
Because without voting, we have no movement of politics in America. So Bradley Beal joins the wave of millions of other Americans who are voting for the first time.
Yeah, they are. And I'm glad the young man is doing it. I know sometimes, I think I became more politically active when I turned about 18 years old, but I'd always heard about it growing up in my household. So, you know, it's better late than never. I'm glad that the man is taking the time to do it and letting other people know that it's important to do also. Big C, you know, as we talk about voting, and it's important to do that, Donald Trump, he pushed really hard in his own words, and his wife has said the Democrats are talking too much about COVID and they're trying to make it politics. Well, Donald Trump pushed hard for football in the Big Ten, and now we know kids are sick. Trump has been in Wisconsin, said nothing about COVID. He's trying to tell them that COVID-19 is not a problem. But I got to bring this up to you, Big C. College football. Wisconsin's football team has paused. Think about this. They've gone on pause, Big C, on all COVID-related activities because of COVID-19. And an increase in COVID-19 has caused the number 9 ranked football team in the country. The game against Nebraska on Saturday is canceled. The game's not going to be rescheduled. Does Melania Trump think that's because of the Democrats or because her husband pushed to get football back, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, as Donald Trump has said, the Democrats are using COVID-19 as a political ploy. I guess he could go back to the Big Ten that he stumped, that he said he got them to come back and play football, which is another one of the damn lies that he told.
Yeah.
But Barry Alvarez said it best. We're not going to put the rest of the health of our young men at risk. We're going to follow COVID-19 protocols. They have their head coach that has tested positive, their 3 first-string quarterbacks, as well as 21 other players, Charlton, that have tested positive for COVID-19.
Yeah.
This game has been canceled, won't be rescheduled, so Nebraska won't lose this week, but the Big Ten loses 2 games.
Yeah.
So that hurts as the season goes on because they're not going to be rescheduled. And so how many more games in the Big Ten will be lost this year because of COVID-19? You can't say it's going to stop in Wisconsin, but that state is really spiking high in COVID-19 cases.
Yeah, it really is. And when you think about Wisconsin, you know, they had a big win in the season over Illinois. We don't know what's happened to Illinois yet as far as other players maybe contracting COVID-19. And I'm so serious when I say this. I know, talking about Melania Trump, she said nothing when Michelle Obama's whole family was being threatened by Donald Trump's birtherism. And then she stands up there and asks women to also vote for her husband, who caused a lot of pain toward an African-American family and his children. Melania said nothing. That says her husband was out sleeping with, you know, guys, women in the porn industry. That's it. I mean, they do what they want to do. But I just want to ask him, and I'm serious about this. When he had a rally and he started talking about Donald Trump's closing up the election, complaining that COVID is a media hoax, just like Russia. What does Wisconsin think, and the people who live in Wisconsin, about wanting to stand in a line to vote for that garbage, Big C? Your thoughts?
They love it, Charlton. They're enthusiastic about it. They appreciate that they have the opportunity to catch COVID-19 going out standing something for Donald Trump. It's just like the stupid guy last week had on a T-shirt. My son died from COVID-19,
wow,
but I'm still voting for Donald Trump because he doesn't lie to us.
That is so crazy. Paul Chryst, as you mentioned, the head coach for the Wisconsin Badgers, he listened to Trump, and he's in isolation because of it. It's all fair and love and war. So let me ask you a thought, because the Pac-12, they have to be seeing this news. They celebrating that the Dodgers won the championship. The Pac-12 California has 4 of the schools in the Pac-12 with USC, UCLA, Cal, and Stanford. Now, they're going to kick off this weekend. They just see what happened to Wisconsin, Big C. Does that put pause on Pac-12, or will they say, hey, there's too much money to care about the health, Big C? Your thoughts?
You know, COVID-19 is not putting a pause on any sports until you have the pandemic on your roster, Charlton. They're going to kick off. They're going to try to get their 6 games in and pray that they might get a nod in the college football playoff.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. Hopefully they don't get a nod in the hospital. It's all fair and level war. College football, Southern Miss interim coach Scotty Walden leaves for Austin Peay, dealing with COVID-19. He's just 30 years old, Big C. He's the youngest head coach at the Division I level, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess he thinks that COVID is too bad in Mississippi, Charlton. So, but, you know, he's getting the opportunity to get a head coaching job at Austin Peay over in Texas.
Yeah.
And Texas is spiking as far as COVID-19. But to have the opportunity to get a head coaching job at a Division I college at the age of 30, Charlton, that you can't pass on that opportunity.
Yeah, and it's just amazing that it comes during the time of a pandemic. And I know people have to keep working no matter whether it's pandemic or not. You got to keep putting food on the table. It doesn't flummox me. It kind of makes me angry that Senator Mitch McConnell, Republican Senator Mitch McConnell, says that they're in recess until after the election, and people are having to sue to see if they can get food stamps just so kids don't go to bed hungry. And to me, when people are standing in line and you realize no matter what color you are, a hungry belly doesn't know what color his skin is. And I don't even know what to say, because I've never been hungry a day in my life. I've been hungry, but I've always had plenty of food no matter where it was. What do you say to young people when they're going out to vote and they're saying, well, we still don't know who we're going to vote for? What would you say to those people who are still on the fence, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's nothing you can say to somebody that's on the fence. If they're still on the fence at this time, then they've lost perspective of what's going on in America. What do you say to those people that are attending the rally, Charlton, and don't have food to supply for their family, or being able to pay their bills, and Trump is standing there lying to them? Stupidity comes in many sizes, forms, ages, and colors, Charlton.
Yeah.
So if you believe the rhetoric that's going on from either party, you're the one that has to decipher whether you have somebody who wants to unify the country, or somebody who doesn't give a damn about half the country.
Yeah, I just asked young people. I know the NBA basketball player said that he's just voting for the first time at 27. I'm saying don't just vote for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. You got to bring decency back, and nobody's perfect. Quit trying to make everyone be Jesus Christ. But vote for someone who's going to bring our country back together. That's my opinion. College football, the 2021 the East-West Shrine game that I've watched for so many years, Big C, it's been canceled due to COVID-19. It's one of the last games that the NFL scouts can watch college football players before the NFL draft has been canceled due to COVID-19 related concerns. 2021 East-West Shrine Bowl that was scheduled to be played in January 23rd at Tropicana Field down in St. Petersburg, Florida. Big C, no more. They put that on pause, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Carlton, many things are going to be put on pause because of COVID-19. That's a game where you don't want to have to risk the health and welfare of these young men who potentially will be in the NFL next year, Charlton. If you're not going to get enough tape on them throughout this minimal season that they play, as well as the NFL Combine, Charlton, you can't do your job as a scout.
Yeah, sometimes people just got to know that they already know if you're good or not, and sometimes people will avoid a bowl game just for the fear of injury when they don't get paid to play, other than you guys down south that hand out paper bags. It took me a while to understand why they hand out paper or plastic in the Southeast Conference. They don't plastic options, always paper, Big C. You're nuts.
Well, I think they hand out paper there in the Pac-12. I noticed last week the receiver at USC was bilking the government for false unemployment, Charlton. So I think he was doing that with a plastic card.
Yeah, he grew up in the South, and I think someone from UCLA reported him, if that makes sense to you. All fair and level war. Well, POTUS said he brought football back, and COVID-19 is shutting down a lot of D1 programs. And Melania Trump says it's the Democrats' hoax that these programs are shutting down. Be best if that makes sense to you. College football, Clemson quarterback, I think he'll be the number one pick so far. Trevor Lawrence, he said he has an option to leave or stay. Young man, leave. Unless you're making a lot of paper bags, a lot more than they'll pay you in the league, leave. Lawrence stopped short of calling an audible play in his plans to head to the NFL next level, next year, Big C. He'll most likely be a number one pick in next year's draft. and did not rule out returning to school. What's the name of that Alabama player that tore his ankle, Big C? Your thoughts, the receiver, your thoughts?
Well, that was Jerry Jeudy. I mean, you have to put this out there. I mean, think about what Eli Manning did, Charlton, years ago when he told the San Diego Chargers he weren't going to play for him.
Yeah.
Think about what John Elway did prior to that when he told the Indianapolis coach he was not going to play for them.
Yeah.
This is the same type of move that Trevor Lawrence is moving with. When you're the number one overall pick in the NFL, you normally go to a very bad team.
Yeah.
You have to look at the overall structure of that organization to have an understanding where your career might be headed.
Yeah. And, who knows where COVID's going to be for 2021. Just like people said about Dak Prescott, Jerry Jones could have paid you more money. Dak wanted 4 years. Jerry said 5. Well, if someone's offering you tens of millions of dollars, sign the contract. You can always negotiate later. Every sports team is like that. And I hope that I don't care if he goes or not. It's not my money, but for his own sake.
Well, if he comes out, Charlton, and he's the number one overall pick, he'll have a 5-year contract not worth more than $35 million.
Yeah.
This is what the salary cap does to rookies that are coming into the NFL. Number one overall pick next year in the draft will only get a maximum of $35 million. So he's weighing all his options. Who knows? If he stays, he can go back to Clemson. He has one more year of eligibility. Who knows what the salary cap will be the following year if he stays healthy.
Yeah, just like Tua, who stayed at Alabama and got injured and his stock dropped. But everybody's got to do what they want to do. A lot of millions in the bank is a lot better than standing in food lines, all fair and love and war. I want to bounce back to the NBA, Big C. When you think about the Utah Jazz, that franchise in such a small state, Gail Miller and family selling the Utah Jazz to Qualtrics founder Ryan Smith for $1.666 billion, Big C. And now think about that. They've had it for, I think, over 3 decades, the ownership. Miller's been the full owner of the Jazz since her billionaire husband passed away, Larry H. Miller passed, and that was in 2009. So what would make someone want to give up an NBA franchise? It's not like you can take the money with you, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's the whole thing. It's not like she takes the money with it, but you got to realize you've owned an NBA franchise for over 30 years. You must be at least 80 years old, Charlton.
Yeah.
And so her interest in that organization is no longer there. It's no longer that emotional tie. And so it's time for her to move on and enjoy the rest of the years of her life.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee by selling this team that it will stay in Utah also. That there's cities that are close, and you got to think about Seattle. Building a new arena. What's the potential of them going to Seattle and having a larger media market than being in Utah? Yeah,
well, maybe she just wants to get next to the Big C burger. It really is a tasty burger. It comes with exotic meats, and you can also have it with the Budweiser Zero alcohol. Great taste also with the Big C burger. Maybe we got to bring that over to Utah, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. I love talking about politics. I love talking about sports. And again, this vote is going to be, they're expecting about 100 million people before Election Day. Not everybody in the country is going to vote, but they're already setting records. And don't be left behind. Don't be that person sitting on the bench saying, I'm going to go down there at the last minute and get my vote in. By the time you get to that line, you may have to wait 7 or 8 hours. Is that what you're saying? You're seeing down south, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we've seen that in multiple places around the country, Charlton. 6 to 8 hour waits that voters have been forced to stand in line.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it's all about enthusiasm and extra people coming out to vote. I know we have record numbers, but I know that shutting down a lot of polling stations have driven people to longer lines.
Yeah.
But the enthusiasm to get out to vote, that's all that matters, Charlton. They have people that have to wait in lines for many things. Think about how long people are staying in food lines waiting to get some food to take home to their families. Think about how long you've had to wait in other scenarios. So something that will change your life and your children's life, regardless of the length of time you have to stand in line, you go out and make that sacrifice.
Yeah, and get registered first. Text the word VOTE to 26797. That's VOTE to 26797 and get yourself registered. Big C, I've seen in the world of politics, I mean, for any person that's so dumb that you don't even know that Joe Biden and Donald Trump are running for the presidential nomination, and the vote's going to be November 3rd, and people are already early voting. And I mean, people sometimes, you say, well, the owners, the station directors tell them don't talk about it, but it's just a shame. But a lot of guys are still fighting about who's bigger, stronger, and faster. Congratulations to the Dodgers last night. But I'm so emboldened by a president that was very classy. I mean, when President Barack Obama when he comes out and he speaks to the American people, Big C, I want to ask you what you feel about it, and then I want to tell you what I feel about it, and I want to talk about something that he's been doing on television that's going to come up before the election. Give me your thought on what it means as an African-American man. You know how President Obama's been put through so much garbage, and then people give Donald Trump, for whatever, a longer lease to do whatever he wants to do up until November 3rd. How does it make you feel when President Obama comes out and speaks with the boldness that I've never really heard from him, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this has been the history of my life and the history of the South. This is what black people have had to endure forever in America. And to have a vocal voice that can come out and have a platform that can represent you as a culture as well as a country is something that everybody should be proud of. Somebody who's articulate and intelligent and comes out, not only speaks his mind, but speaks the truth.
Yeah.
Versus the buffoonery that we've had to deal with for the last 6 years of this guy's campaign and presidency. But it also shows you the divide in America.
Yeah.
That racism is evident. And when you look at his rallies and you see 99.9% of the people that are white and reveling over the things that he says that advocate racism and separatism in America, Charlton, it lets you know that a man who has character and class can come out in Barack Obama and speak to America, and it resonates and people appreciate it.
Yeah, and so I'm proud when black men do it. And I'm saying, I'm sure he follows Big C Sports because he's more bold now. He's not like the passive and trying to be respectful that he was when he was in the office, and I know he had to do what he had to do, but now he's taking the gloves off, and he's standing up like a real man, and I'm proud of him. He don't have his head between his tails, and I'm not being disrespectful when I say that, but I'm so proud of him for saying the truth and not trying to be nice. Even Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, he was boasting about mid-April how the president had cut out the doctors, listen up Melania, had cut out the doctors and scientists advising him that the unfolding COVID-19 pandemic, that it was caused at that time about 40,000 Americans had passed away from it. But he was bragging that Trump was taking back the country from doctors, and they were going to make people think that science was bad. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he has made people think that science is bad, Charlton. When you just listen to his rhetoric and the dumb people, the racist people that follow him, believing what he says versus the science, as we see the death toll in America climb every day.
Yeah, and so about 75 million Americans have voted up to today, and it's more than 50% of the total polling of the 2016. Isn't that amazing? Early voting has always favored Democrats, and it's going to be unbelievable this time, in my opinion. As a sports show, we've been calling this for about 4 years now. We're not someone that just came under the scenes in the last few minutes, Big C. So I'm very proud of you, and I'm even proud of myself how we go back and forth. We don't always agree, but just like President Obama, when he follows Big C Sports, if you speak the truth, people can Google it. They don't have to always like it, but they can Google it, and that, to me, that gives you credibility. And I don't mind promoting other programs either. Sports and politics. A lot of dumb guys said it doesn't mix, but that's why they're dumb. Los Angeles Lakers star Lebron James has talked to a number of big-name celebrities, Big C, and its HBO show. It's called The Shop. But it's not as good as Big C Sports, and I'm just being honest, and I'm not being disrespectful, but I put our show up against anybody. You could talk about what we've talked about, and it's been true. Before we say it, and it comes true. That's called being prescient. But The Shop, it may have had its biggest guest for the most important time in the United States, Big C. In the 2020 election for the president is fast approaching. Former President Barack Obama, he's going to talk to LeBron James about racial justice on The Shop. I'm not slamming anybody. Big C Sports hasn't had to have any president, any CEO, any doctor, any lawyer, any politician. What we say, you can Google it. You don't have to like it, but you can't say we don't know what we're talking about. But I'm proud of LeBron James for being able to get Mr. President Obama on. It's called The Obama Episode. The Shop will air Friday, October 30th at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is LeBron being socially, racially conscious about the plight of America. And to have the honor of having former President Obama there is just a feather in the cap, Charlton. These two men who fight in the same direction for the same cause for all Americans, Charlton, especially minority Americans. This is what we need to have more of on broadcast than on television daily.
Yeah, and we got to do it. And now, I know when they started the Black Lives Matter, I think it was LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, There was Chris Boss and someone else that may be missing, but they stood up on the stage and they were dressed in all black. And it reminded me of the summit back in the 50s or the 60s, Big C, when Black Americans were doing the same thing. And to just see how far we've come as a people, where you can see like the rudder of a ship. Black men may be a small class in the United States, but our voices ring loud. Our voices ring so loud that the whole world will listen to us, whether it's the March on Washington, whether it's the Million Man March, whether it's W.E.B. Du Bois, Thurgood Marshall. We've always had the oratory ability. But if we don't use it, Big C, then God must have given it to the wrong people. I'm proud that we're using it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you have to have an opportunity to use your voice, Charlton. Black people have not always been given a platform to be able to uplift others because they've been limited as far as when you look at the electronic transmission.
Yeah.
But now, because of so many different platforms out there, black men and women, Charlton, can utilize their voice and their vision for others to hear and see.
Yeah, and this is something I want to say for black women. We only have a few minutes left before we close, but it's so important for me to say this. In our society, all my life, I felt I could do anything I wanted to do. But I've never really been inside the boardroom where the people don't look like me that say, oh, you can't do it. I was watching something on Richard Pryor today, and he was on the show with Dick Cavett, a Hollywood entertainer, Big C. It was back in the 70s. And Cavett was saying to Richard Pryor, I could write for you. I could write your comedy for you. And Richard Pryor said, well, why would I need you to write it for me? I can write it for myself and I have other people that I'm working with. He said, well, Richard, I could probably speak to people the way that you couldn't speak to you because you're not in that side of the room. And Richard Pryor said something that I still think about to this day. He said, I don't need you to tell me how I think. I don't need you to speak for me. I just need a microphone and people to listen. And now we're finding that black men all over this country are finding that in sports and politics. Big C, your thoughts?
Jonathan, I've told you that for a long time. When people tell you what to say and what to write, then your career will be over tomorrow night. And that's where Richard Pryor stood back then. I've always stood that way. I know you and I disagree a lot of times on what I say when you defend other people, when I make my suggestions about them. But that's how it is in politics, just like Richard Pryor said. That's how it is in sports.
Yeah.
Just like Richard Pryor said. I don't need you to speak for me. I don't need you to write for me. These are my opinions.
Yeah. And I like that. Sometimes we got to go to comedy to realize that things don't really change. They just get told in different stories by different people. Denver Broncos, Melvin Gordon, ready to turn things around versus his old team. We have Jeremy Orr, the former receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Colts, passed away at 85 years old. Bruce Arians, Antonio Browns. They look fantastic doing their first workout with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Big C, just like Antonio Brown, I hope he gets some help with whatever he's going through. But Arians is the same guy that said he wasn't the right fit for him. But then some good old boys said, no, wait a minute, give him a chance. On the football field, that Tom Brady spoke up for him because he could help him win. Do you see more of that happening in the corporate American landscape as well, Big C? Your thoughts?
No, Charlton, because in football, you're an employee. You're a disposable commodity. You bring in players to help you win, not help you lose. And that's what it is in football. Antonio Brown, if he's right mentally, is still one of the best top 10 receivers that would be in the NFL. So they're bringing him in for his football attributes, not his social activity.
Yeah, I just know that everybody needs a chance, and nobody's perfect. We all fall down, but we got to get back up. And when you get back up, you have somebody helping you get up. Nobody does it on their own. There's nobody pulling themselves up by that bootstraps. I'm proud of the LA Dodgers bringing it back home to California. I know that makes you want to throw up, Big feet, that the West Coast has won the NBA championship and the World Series all in the same year, Big C. It's all fair, love, and war, and I really congratulate all those teams. Everybody, please get out and vote. Listen to Barack Obama, President Barack Obama. Don't die with your music still in you. Whatever's in you, let it come out. The universe is listening. Just know what you're talking about. You don't got to be perfect, but let it come out. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we're looking more than the University of Nebraska is looking forward to. Their game is canceled this week with the University of Wisconsin. But you think about all those stupid people standing out in sub-freezing weather last night in Omaha, Nebraska, to listen to Donald Trump lie to them, then walk away and leave them in the cold, to leave that burden on our healthcare workers in America, Charlton. I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders. They didn't turn their back on those Nebraska residents like Donald Trump did last night. They stayed around to help them.
Yeah, and he also left his wife out in the cold because she can't speak English. It's All Fair 11 War every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage all on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.